We need to share that State Representative Dorothy Moon has a district, District 8, in the Idaho House of Representatives that stretches all the way to North Dakota. Well, no, not quite that big, but it's one of the most massive districts geographically in all of Idaho. And there was an earthquake. If some of you didn't know this yet, some of us did sleep through it, sort of. I have just some vague recollection of waking up and going back to bed. But in her district, a lot of the people, of course, she represents were really close to the epicenter of this. And she's going to spend some time with us this morning just giving us a little bit of background. She did not happen to be there, we should point out, although she did experience because it was so widespread. We're at 30, coming up on 721. Bill Cully on News Radio 1310, KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. And Representative, welcome back to the program.
Oh, good morning, Bill. How are you doing?
As I said, I think about the time this first hit. This is my fourth big earthquake. Two of them I was awake and I knew what was happening, and two of them I was asleep. And in both cases where I was asleep, I just kind of opened my eyes for a minute, then closed my eyes and went back to bed. So I didn't get the experience that a lot of people had. And you were just telling me you're not even in the district right now because you were doing business in Cassia County, but you felt it there, and you felt it really hard there too as well.
We were shocked. You just never expected. And I've been in a few earthquakes too, living up in Stanley. My Sunbeam, that same area, there's always a lot of activity, usually a 3.5 or 4, because when you're out land surveying, like my husband does, especially in those rural areas up there, he would be out in the field, and all of a sudden his equipment would start shaking, or, the instrumentation, they're pretty common up there, but they're always, about the 3.2 level where you just barely feel them. But this level at a 6.5, it really did make quite some distance. I think every stretch of the state pretty much felt that earthquake. We were down in Burley picking up some food at a drive-through because that's the only place you can get food at, and heading over to my in-laws, and the truck started rocking back and forth, and my adult son and Dar were in the truck, and we're going, what is going on? Well, we were waiting for our food to be delivered curbside. Every employee came out of this fast food restaurant, and they were very upset. Obviously, these were young folks who had never experienced an earthquake and didn't know what was going on. But it went on, less than a minute. It seemed, of course, it always seems longer, but it was probably less than a minute. But that truck was going back and forth. Anyway, so we knew we were in an earthquake, and then we were, trying to let the folks know who worked at the restaurant. Dar was immediately on the USGS website. He actually tracks earthquakes all the time, just because we're both geologists. So it's right there.
You lead such exciting lives, don't you?
Yeah, we do. We sure do.
Well, he must have picked up the 6.5 then right away.
Yes. We were just trying to figure out where the epicenter was. Now, when you look at the map they had on the news, it is pretty close. It's between northeast of Stanley. Well, that's pretty much where we live. So, it's interesting when you have a big earthquake like you do. The one in southeast Missouri, when they had that one in the Boot Hill where the river ran, the Missouri River ran backwards. Mississippi River ran backwards. That was a time when there were a lot of population, a lot of folks, and so they were pretty much determining where it hit on the Richter based on the amount of damage to the fireplaces, the fallen brick and structures. But so lucky for us, this was also in a very rural area. However, my son works for ITD, and he was just coming in at 6 p.m. He was plowing snow, and there was 2 feet of snow dumped up in the mountains over an 18-hour period. So when he was coming in, he was kind of fighting the snow to get to the house about the time the earthquake hit, and he didn't really feel it, but he was in a four-wheel drive car, and he got home, but it was a fight. But I'm figuring he was trying to get up the hill and just negotiating it, just didn't really notice the earthquake because he didn't know if he'd get the car up there or not. But we do have some damage. We've got some structural damage in our garage and the concrete.
I think that probably a lot of the people you represent have been in touch with you too as well over the last 14 hours, just because a lot of people obviously are still trying to survey any damage they have.
Right, right, and that's the problem. In fact, I'll be reaching out to folks today because you've got 2 feet of snow. A lot of people aren't going to be walking around their foundations to see if there's any damage. Now, Diamond D Ranch is past us, and it's a very exclusive, back in the woods, wilderness area ranch with a lot of structures. They do have a groundskeeper there through the winter because you can't get there unless you fly in. And they're checking things out, and they'll be getting back with me. I did hear from Steve Smith, our county commissioner. He actually has the Mount Bora Ranch, where the original, Bora fault line is located, and so he's always ready to find out if people have any serious problems or need some help. So our emergency management team, I think they're on it in Custer County, and we're just going to start collecting data to find out.
I want to mention just quickly, Dorothy Moon is joining us this morning. She's a state representative from District 8, and that's a huge, what you might call, swathe of the central part of the state of Idaho. And the quake last night took place not too far from where she lives, although she was on business in Burley. Still felt it there, as most people did all over the state, obviously. And we're at 727. It's 29 on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Here's the thing, since we will not even probably have damage estimates from a lot of people because of snowpack and people out in the backwoods for days, perhaps, is the state, I mean, we're considering what we're going through right now otherwise, is anybody in state government prepared to step in and really, quickly assist any of these people?
Well, Bill, I think they are. My phone, text, everything was going crazy most of the night. But the governor's office, his staff got with me almost immediately. Speaker Bedke was the first person to call me to make sure things were okay, and what does it look like? And I was getting the picture through the night. But I'm telling the Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeehan called me almost immediately, and multiple representatives. One of the representatives, Vanderwoude, he lives on the far western side of Boise. He said his clock stopped, his pendulum clock stopped. So everybody had a story to share with me. That's when I started figuring out the range of it. That this is probably across the entire state and then some. So yeah, it was interesting, and I know I am a geology geek, but the scope of it, even to fill it in Burley, Dar and I were thinking it was because of down in the Wasatch, that it was something that triggered down in the Salt Lake area. But, oh no, it had to be right next to the house. I thought, oh my gosh. Of course, we miss everything, isn't that it? Well, we didn't miss it. It was pretty, we actually felt more than my son did. And he's right there close to it.
Can you spend a few more minutes with us? I've got to get to a news break in a moment, but
you bet, Bill. You bet.
Want to continue this conversation on the other side of the news break. We're spending some time this morning with State Representative Dorothy Moon from District 8, and again, the center of the quake, the epicenter, was very close to her home, and again, a lot of people, as she pointed out, they had 2 feet of snow that has fallen up there in that area, and so a lot of folks at this point don't even have an opportunity to survey damage. Others are probably, if they've surveyed it, they're not going to be getting out for a little while. So it's going to be it could be several days before we really learn of the extent of any damage that's done from this. But in the meantime, we've got more coming up with the representative at 7:30. We're at 31 on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. And local news is coming up next. We're speaking with State Representative Dorothy Moon. She represents District 8 here in Idaho. One of 2 representatives from that district, and of course there's a state senator as well. She has a home very close to the epicenter of last night's earthquake, and there have been a couple of dozen aftershocks since then, and she was actually in Burley when it took place, but she obviously felt it there. It was felt really throughout the entire state. Bill Colley with you on Magic Valley this morning until 10 a.m. We're at, I'll call it 7:35. We're at 31 on News Radio 1310 KLIX. And Representative, we were just talking off air, and I have a message from Fairfield where we have someone who actually ended up with brown water from the well and had to let it flush for about 40 minutes until it got back to clear. And you were telling me that's not unusual for the aquifer to take a bit of a gut punch in anything like this.
Right. I mean, you're talking about when an epicenter, is miles or below the Earth's surface. Of course, it's when it radiates out, it's going to affect everything, and just shake it up. And being from Missouri originally, and that karst topography, and Missouri also notorious in the southeast part of the state for earthquakes. I mean, that happened a lot. The water table would change dramatically. You all of a sudden not even have water getting to certain areas. So yeah, it's amazing what it can do. We're just now going to start hearing about how it's impacted folks around the state.
When you were telling me when you were teaching that you actually discussed some of the topography and how it changed that because of the water bursting forth.
Right. So on the Bora fault, when that one went off, I had a geology college class out there from CSI, some students through the IEN program, and we did a field trip. And you could actually see in the Chile, it's called Chile area, over there by Mount Bora, that the water would moved from underground, was like squeezed out, and it shot up like an artesian well and created these little cones, like these little mountains of sand where the water came out, and the remnants of those are still there. So it's really interesting. It's a huge dynamic process that you just don't see that often in your lifetime. And like you said, Bill, we were talking off air, and gosh, you've experienced a lot of earthquakes all around the country. So they happen, and when they do, there's normally a counterpunch somewhere else. So it's interesting. You could see something down in Chile in South America, and you could have a 6.5 to an 8 down there, and then there's give and take. There'll be another one somewhere in the northern hemisphere relatively soon. So everybody should go to the USGS website and track these earthquakes, and you'll see the aftershocks, and we're going to probably have a few more. You can track the magnitude of them, and sometimes the aftershocks do a lot more damage than the actual initial quake. So the initial quake gets things kind of moving, and then the other ones start doing the damage if they're big enough.
I was thinking in Salt Lake City, it's almost an identical quake as far as what it is on the Richter scale, but the damage there was somewhat light because it has to do with the depth of where the actual fault takes place, as I understand it.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And, that's why, some of the damage, I guess, in our garage floor, the concrete, now my son took video footage of it, and it, cracked all the way across it. Two-sided, two-car garage. So it'll be interesting to see how many other folks have the same damage and how it aligns, how it's delineated on that floor. So yeah, there's a lot to it, but I'm sure I'll be getting some more reports today. But if folks do need, they do need to call their emergency management coordinator, and every county has one. So if you do see that you have some damage, we as a state still need to assess how much damage there is, because if there's some sort of federal aid that will help in this situation, just like in the COVID-19, it's like, oh my gosh, I've had a lot of doom and gloom Facebook posts and emails, and people are going, oh my gosh, what's next? We are being tried. I'll tell you, it's been a very trying time this spring.
We're speaking with State Representative Dorothy Moon from District 8, and of course she lives near Stanley. And coming up on 7:39, it's 31. Bill Colley on Magic Valley this morning. On News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. When you see something like this happen and the aftershocks, we have a lot of snow still up in the mountains, especially the high peaks. We haven't seen anything like an avalanche come out of this, of course, at least that I'm aware of. But there are going to be people. There were some rock slides I know that blocked some roads last night. But the combination of all of this, we talked about this earlier. You could have a lot of people in the backcountry who we really don't know what's going on, and they may not get out for quite some time. I mean, the only way really to be, I guess, checking on them would be to take a chopper in and see what was going on.
Well, right, and hopefully everyone knows where their loved ones are. And because of the COVID-19, I'm sure you're aware that people from Blaine County and other counties have been trying to get out into the woods. We had a lot of campers. In fact, we had a lot of folks in their RVs and campers come up the Yankee Fork about a week ago, 10 days ago, when that order was first put. Well, before the order was put out, people were, getting out of Blaine County, and again other counties, and they were camped out. So there could still be some people out there, and you could only get as far back as the snow would allow you. However, we've had some snow, but not to the extent we have in past years. But after yesterday, with that 2 feet up there, that could trap some folks in there.
Yeah, as I understand it, there were people. The concern was people camping in places in the forest in Custer and Idaho counties, and what you're trying to do in this situation is, to tell them it's probably not the wisest place to be. We're only April 1st, and obviously, even in July there's some dangers out there. But April 1st, just going out and hiding out in the woods is probably not a good idea.
Right. And now my son, he gets up really early. All the ITD guys do, because they do the highway reports about 5 in the morning, about when you're up, Bill. Anyway, so and I told him to make sure he lets us know how difficult it was to get in, because there's a lot of slides on that highway. Everywhere around Stanley, any of these windy mountain roads are at risk for a boulder or rocks or debris, trees even, to come down. So people really need to be wary if they're on those roads right now, and be careful. And I know ITD will be on top of this. I know there was a big boulder. I think you probably referenced it over there by Idaho City. And Boise County is one of my counties too. So I know I'm going to be hearing a lot from them today as well.
Before we wrap up, we've got about 3 minutes to go. You referenced the COVID-19 situation, and obviously, all of you, who were working in the legislature, this was a huge concern near the end of session and the like. How do you think we're performing in the state of Idaho? I mean, just overall, maybe not just government, but overall, how do you think we're performing through all of this?
Well, I think we're doing well. I mean, you don't like to see folks go and, grab all the toilet paper in the store. I still can't quite understand that one. But you've got to remember, I live up in Stanley in the middle of nowhere, so I've got a pretty good toilet paper supply already. But the hoarding of the food and all of that, I thought was... Of course, people are scared. I guess this is a new thing for a lot of people. And you and me, Bill, at our age, we've lived, swine flu. We've been through H1N1. We've been through some of these before. But the people just need to learn how to cope and take a breath and do what they need to do, the social distancing recommendations, the washing of your hands, using the Purell. Just do those things. And if you feel ill, stay home. If you're an essential job, like ITD is, keeping our roads clear, be careful. Just be aware. Be aware of your situation. And that's what it's always about in these emergency situations. But it should be everyday life. Be aware of your situation, and protect others, protect your family, and I think it's really important. But I think Idaho's done well. We one of the last states to have a case. That we were the second to the last, which was great. I think everybody was watching that. Sadly, though, we are having deaths occur now. But we have a lot of people with flu too. People are still dying from the flu. So there's a lot of moving parts. A lot of reason for concern, people needing to make money and, pay their rent and buy their groceries. It's precarious times, but people just need to know we're Idahoans, we're tough, and we're going to get through this.
Well, State Representative Dorothy Moon, we'll talk again soon. Keep us posted.
I will, Bill. I really appreciate it. Sorry, I was trying to get some sleep this morning. And Doris said, Bill's wanting to talk to you. And I said, I want to talk to him. So, yeah, we need to keep the lines of communication open for these folks to get help or to report what's happening on the ground. So I really appreciate you giving me the time.
Well, have a great day.
You too. Okay, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. State Representative Dorothy Moon with us this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX. And newsradio1310.com, but of course the epicenter of the earthquake taking place just a few miles from her home. We're at 30. Coming up on 7:45, the Rush Morning Update. Bill Colley with you until 10 a.m. on Magic Valley This Morning.